What's up, everybody? It's RJ with Roads to Liberty. Today, I want to talk to you guys about a debate that was recently done between Sam Seder from the Majority Report.fm and Libertarian Darryl Perry, Darryl W. Perry, co-host of Free Talk Live and former Libertarian Party nominee hopeful, whatever it is. He was trying to be the nominee for the Libertarian Party for president. So right to the crux of the issue here is the fact that the debate went terribly, and I mean, I shouldn't say it went terribly. It went pretty poorly. It went pretty darn poorly. What went so poorly was the fact that Darryl flipped out, and I have a video up on this channel called Sam Seder's Emotional Consequentialism. Kind of a tongue twister of a title, but basically what I'm getting at with that video is the fact that Sam has a tendency, or had a tendency, maybe he's refined his approach, but there's clips in that video that show you instances where Sam had sort of had an emotional response to the notion of a stateless society, and that in and of itself exposed a flaw in his ability to debate in favor of his position, namely statism. And whether or not he saw my video, or whether he just realized this from other people giving him feedback on his approach, and he debated Walter Block, and he's debated other libertarians. Unfortunately, this same problem that plagued Sam, the emotionalism, the emotional consequentialism, the emotional response, the reactionary response, has this time hit our camp. And I don't want to make this about blaming Darryl Perry and slandering him as a bad representative for liberty or anything like that. I want to talk about legitimately what happened and what could have happened to be better, and what, for a better outcome, and what I hope to see in the future, kind of thing. So Sam and Darryl get off to a decent start. They're being civil. I felt Darryl was sort of dominating the flow of conversation a little bit too much. He was sort of bogarting the mic, as it were. And that's never good, I don't think, in a debate. The more you have to, as Alex Jones did on the Piers Morgan show, which I'm not going to get into Alex Jones right now. That's a whole other can of worms. But when you have to sort of talk over your opponent, you're in so many ways admitting to the fact, am I going to get rain here? You're so many ways admitting to the fact that you're afraid to hear what they have to say. You're sort of unsure of yourself and your position if you have to talk over your opponent. So that was off to a bad start. They sort of agreed. Sam let Darryl, or asked Darryl, to give his first principle, or his understanding of what the first principles are of libertarianism. Darryl does so, and then they get to the issue of Gary Johnson, who is the now chosen nominee for the Libertarian Party, presidential candidate 2016. And basically both agreed that Gary has backed away from and refused to acknowledge his own first principles by which he defines the rest of his moral and political viewpoints, or from which he defines those viewpoints. So in a way, that's a good start, because Darryl and Sam were starting to establish where Darryl was relative to sort of maybe mainstream libertarian culture, or what's considered to be the mainstream political understanding of libertarianism as presented by Gary Johnson, at least in the current day. Unfortunately, it wasn't long after that Darryl started to lose ground. Sam doing a good job, I have to admit, on his end of things, holding up a strong debate approach, taking Darryl's first principles and sort of trying to dig into talking about the rights to someone else's stuff, as Darryl was kind of saying, like, I don't have the right to go into your house and take your stuff. And I think what Darryl was sort of trying to get to backdoor was, here's why taxation, and thereby the state, is against individual free will, i.e., I have a right to the fruits of my labor. And that's where it started. Sam wanted clarification. So what if I inherit something, or what if I find something? It's not really the fruits of my labor. That's just something I have. So ultimately, aren't you saying that individuals have a right to their property? And Darryl started to get pressured here, and I could see why. He was going into questions of how, basically anarcho-communists, or the leftist voluntarist sort of crew, leftist anarchist crew, sort of say property is theft. You can't, there's no sense in which you can say you legitimately own anything. And that's a diversion, because that's not Sam's position, and Darryl acknowledged that's not Sam's position. So Sam continued to press Darryl and say, okay, so how do I establish property? How do I establish property in your model without a state? Isn't it the state that tells me I have a deed to this land? And Darryl tried. I mean, I'm not saying he immediately had no answers and was stammering and stuttering. What made the debate look very poorly upon people who advocate for liberty is the fact that that's a great opportunity. Sam has a pretty big audience, and he continues to get a lot of views. The way Darryl spazzed out, yelled, lost his cool, and eventually hung up on Sam just speaks so poorly for us as libertarians. I mean, I don't condone the political route, and that I'm going to get into this in just a second. I'm going to jump back to what happened in the debate, and I'm going to get to sort of moving forward. But before Darryl spazzed out, I call it spazzed out, before he lost his cool, he was unable to address this question of property rights, because Sam was kind of pressing him and saying, okay, so if there's competing agencies that could issue deeds or could arbitrate disputes regarding property, won't that lead to a conflict? If party A has one organization and party B has another organization and they're in disagreement, basically he was saying, doesn't there need to be a state, a single, authority that, whether they have a monopoly of force or not, which he's saying they need to, that they can be the ones to arbitrate or be the arbiter of who owns what and what the outcome is of any dispute. This is where things go awry, and I'll get into tangentially how this affects other things regarding Darryl himself, is that libertarians and voluntarists and anarcho-capitalists have a tendency to use this sort of a response. Well, and Darryl does, where you go, well, my job isn't to centrally plan liberty, or I'm not interested in centrally planning liberty. It's really a cop-out, and it's dangerous to us, because what it's a tongue-in-cheek way of saying I don't know what would happen, or I have no idea what would happen. Stefan Molyneux is one of the, for all of his pros and cons, as might be fair to say, he's not going to align with everything everybody believes in, but he's done a great job of carrying the tradition of Murray Rothbard or someone like that, who can actually talk about types of solutions. Not that this is the way it will be, not that there is one way that things should be, but that here's a possible way that things can work. Sam's right to point out that if we as libertarians or as volunteers want to say, here's the way I advocate for things to be, we need to have an understanding of how things will be. Who's going to take our suggestions if whenever someone asks for clarity on how things will be, we just say, I don't know, that's the whole point. My job's not to centrally plan liberty. Don't get mad at me and act as if I don't understand that response. I do. The notion is, the whole point of liberty is, I'm not making decisions for you. I'm not telling you how to conduct your affairs. There's multiple ways to solve a problem. Great. That all being said, if you can't, as the libertarian presidential candidate or as a spokesperson for liberty, have at least some good ideas or good suggestions as to here's how it could be, we're in trouble. And, suffice to say, just at this point of what I want to say to you guys is, Darryl Perry was unprepared for this debate, and that kind of a response of, I'm not centrally planning liberty, we really want to try to move away from that and use that as a caveat and then still give examples. Say, well, I'm not here to essentially plan liberty. However, here's a few ways in which this can be done. And these answers are out there. Like I said, Murray Rothbard, Stefan Molyneux, other people have talked about these issues and these responses. And this is why Darryl, to a great extent, wasn't prepared to handle these concerns that Sam put forth. I keep having to reposition here. I'm actually trying to keep this video going, even though the rain's coming down a little bit. I'm outside down the block from my house because I like shooting outside. So thank you for bearing with me. Where I want to go with this next is how this problem came to be in the case of Darryl kind of dropping the ball for our team. If you have a pitcher in a baseball game or a quarterback in a football game, they're sort of the team captain on the field defensively and offensively, depending on the situation. The point is that this is an individual that we look to for guidance. This is the individual that sort of guides our approach and our direction. When they fail, it has a downstream effect. It affects the rest of the people on that team. It's positively or negatively. When they succeed, it helps the rest of the team as well. So, two things. One, I liked Free Talk Live for a long time, but today I have a harder time listening to it because my realization is that it's great as sort of a front door for liberty because they cover the news and then they put a liberty spin on things. But the more critical I get in my thinking, the more I try to really get deeper into how libertarianism can work and how voluntarism can work. I realize they don't have those answers on that show. Mark Edge is more of a libertarian conservative, almost a Republican in a lot of respects in the way he sees things. And Ian Freeman and Darryl W. Perry, it might be fair to call those people actual voluntarists or libertarians, but I think it's important that we spend more time learning about the theory and talking about the theory and actually figuring out the how this will work, without and less time just complaining about, oh, a cop beat someone up, or a woman is losing her property because she didn't pay property taxes. These things are terrible, and these are effects of the state, but they're not changing things outside of just maybe waking people up. So maybe there's a good role for programs like the Free Talk Live and stuff like that. But I find it unfortunate that Darryl Perry was, in this case, the spokesperson for liberty, because he made us look bad. I mean, the energy, the screaming, the ranting, the raving, he put himself in the range of the Young Turks and the Blaze.com, people that are supposedly alternative media, but come out as one-sided and emotional as the mainstream media does. I gotta take this inside, guys. It's raining all over me. All right, so it's a break in the rain, hopefully for a minute while I finish this video up. So, in a sense, it's unfortunate that Darryl Perry was the guy that recently spoke on behalf of libertarians for this Sam Seder debate. But at the same point in time, it's really not the end of the world, because as unfortunately poorly as he did portray these views to the left through Sam's channel, it's not going to happen overnight. I think a lot of us are aware of this and agree with that the process of achieving a more liberty-oriented society isn't going to happen overnight. So our best bet is to make any incremental gains we can. That being said, I want to point out one other thing that comes to my mind with regards to what happened, is the fact that I wonder to what extent the fact that Darryl was running, quote unquote, for president on the Libertarian, under the Libertarian banner, to what extent that affected his ability to get in the position to be on Sam's show and to be taken seriously and to be considered a representative for liberty or libertarianism. I've said it before, and I'll say it many more times. I don't think it's a good thing writ large for liberty to be pursued through political means. That means I don't think that we should be bothering to vote for libertarian candidates. I don't think we should bother to run as libertarian candidates. I don't think we should bother to like or share any libertarian candidates' messages online, not only does it confuse the issue that liberty can be had through democracy, which is entirely problematic and worthy of, much treatment on its own, not just one video, but I could go on about that for a long time, and I'm sure I will. But the fact that we can even be a message for liberty, the fact that an individual can even accurately portray ideas of libertarianism on a political platform, I think is just so ill-founded that this is what it gets us. It gets us people like Darryl Perry sort of rushing in to speak on our behalf, and really, truly, I don't know who's qualified to speak on our behalf. I know that Walter Block and I believe Stefan Molyneux have both already debated Sam Seder, and I think I've watched both. I know I've watched the Walter Block, and I believe I've watched the Stefan Molyneux as well. I think I need to go back and check them out again just to see what my thoughts are, but it's not easy. It really isn't easy, and this I'll say to Darryl's credit. Like I said, I could have been in his shoes. I could have done as poor, if not worse, of a job doing standing up for libertarian values. I don't think I would, but at the same point in time, that's the point of this channel. That's the point of